All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Sorry, no intro today, guys. I have not been feeling well, so I decided to skip the intro because I don't look very appealing to the camera this week. So we are starting with a 20-ounce modern curve. I purchased this from makerflo. And we are going to be creating a swirl pattern with 3 spray paints today. We're going to be using a satin white. I just didn't have flat. We're going to use a gold metallic, and then we are going to use actually 2 versions of pink, so 4 spray paints. So what I did first is I just went in with that white and just created kind of a very large section of white swirl, and you'll see why. And now I'm just going to go in with the gold metallic, and just following that white section, I'm going to create the equivalent of a large space next to that white section in just gold. So now I've picked up a candy pink. All of these are from Rustoluem except for the white, which was the satin from Krylon. And I'm going in with the pink in that third section there. Again, just making kind of equal parts of each. And then I'm actually going to go in with a hot pink. And I'm going to put some accents there, and then you'll see me go back over with some of those colors just to make sure that they show. So right now I have those 3 colors on there and in a kind of a swirl pattern around the cup. And the way that I kind of do this, I'm sorry that I'm kind of out of shot for a lot of this, but the way that I do this is I just kind of rotate my hand as I am doing those short spurts of spray paint. And that just helps me to keep control. If I'm not going too heavy in with the spray paint, then I won't have those drips. And so now I'm going in with that hot pink, that fluorescent pink. That is a Krylon, or that's a Krylon spray paint as well. And I'm just going to put some hot pink highlights in there. So I'm going to go right in between the gold and that candy pink to create another section, and then put a couple extra kind of accent pieces on the cup as well. I thought about just keeping the candy pink, but I kind of decided that I wanted a couple different versions of pink to kind of give this cup just that extra kind of oomph. So I'm going to finish spray painting this swirl, just going back over those sections that after I've done the fluorescent pink, just to make sure that those white, gold, and candy pink colors are still prominent on the cup. And the way that I do the bottom of the cup, I know I didn't really show that, as I just spray a little bit of each spray paint on the bottom, nothing too crazy. Okay, so I wanted to show this to you guys. I'm going to show you how I apply the epoxy for epoxy method glitter. So I've mixed up about 5 mLs of epoxy, and I've just poured about 2 mLs on the bottom. And the reason 2 mLs over 1 is just because I know that I'm using chunky glitters and I want to make sure that they stick. So I'm pouring just a little bit on the bottom and then using my gloved hand to drag that epoxy all over the cup. You want to make sure that every inch of your tumbler is covered, because if you don't have everything covered, then you run into your glitter not sticking in some sections, and then you have to try and go back and touch those up, and it's a little bit harder to do that. So cover the entire tumbler, and then you're able to move to the glitter. Okay, so now it's time to move into the glitter application. I have a lot of glitters that I've picked out to do this glitter swirl. Of course, everything that I am using today, I will list in the description down below, so feel free to check that out. So I'm starting with the gold section, and I'm using Athena from Peachy Olive Glitters. And what I'm going to be doing with each of these glitters, like I've shown you before in ombre, is I'm just going to try and get kind of light coverage. So I want to create a base so that when I use those finer cuts of the same glitters, I can use those to ombre and blend into the next sections of color. So I've finished with my Athena, and then I'll move into the next colored section. So the trick to doing an ombre, or doing kind of a Milky Way swirl pattern with glitter, is to just really take your time. So it's very important that you don't rush it, and that you're very gentle when you're tapping your glitters out of your shaker, only because you would hate to dump half of your glitter bottle on top of your tumbler and then have to try and make it work that way. So now I'm going in with Fillory from Peachy Olive Glitters as well. And I'm just going to cover that white section. This is a very chunky white. I absolutely love it. The shine on this is beautiful. Okay, so now to move in to my pink sections. So I am taking Bailey, which was, again, from Peachy Olive Glitters, in one of their palettes, most recent palettes with neon colors. I absolutely love this color. And we are just going to lightly, again, with these chunky colors, we're just going to very lightly cover those colored sections. So the next color I'm going to be using is not a peachy olive color. It is a color from Glitter Makes It. I will list again all of these in the description below, but this has some like silver bits in it as well, and I really loved how this really played off the white Fillory. It really just, I felt like, brought it together. So going in with that chunky glitter right there to cover that candy pink section, and you'll notice that I didn't put any glitter on the bottom, and the reason why I didn't is because I don't like to put chunky glitter on the bottom. I think I've told you guys that before, just because it then gives me a harder time when I go to epoxy these when I have that chunky glitter on the bottom. Obviously, I'm going to pat all this glitter down, but to be safe, I definitely want to make sure that I don't have anything chunky on the bottom so I don't end up with a bunch of sharp bits of glitter that I then have to sand later. So going over that Athena gold section, I'm taking Gold Member from Peachy Olive Glitters, and I'm just, again, creating just sparse coverage on that gold section. I'm going to go in with, I believe this is Cool Mom in the hot pink sections, just over that area. Nothing, again, I'm not getting full coverage yet. I'm really just trying to create that base. That way, when we go in with the finer cuts of each of these colors, we can then start to blend into the sections. Now, I don't do a whole lot of blending in the sections, so it's not, I don't want to say it's like an ombre swirl. It's not really that, but I like to bring each color into the next color so that it kind of just looks like it was a purposeful swirl and not just, you know, harsh lines and sections of glitter color. So I went back in with the Glitter Makes It color, the white there to cover. That is, I think it feels like a hug or warm like a hug, something like that. Anyway, you know, I have all these listed, but I also have these listed in the description as well as a discount code for the Glitter Makes It glitter, and that will save you 30% off with my code LBC30 at checkout for any of their glitters. So this pink that I have in a cup, this is actually just a mix that I created. I believe it's like a Walmart brand, like very fine pink, and then I have some Brite in there as well as I think Lassie from Peachy Olive Glitters, and it really just was a gorgeous pink to be able to use. So again, I'm just trying to create full coverage on the cup here with my finer colors to be able to create this swirl. And now that I finished the pink, I'm then just going to go back over those sections with the finer colors. So this is I'm a Barbie Girl from Glitter Makes It. Absolutely love this color. Like, I could bathe in this pink color. Like, I love this hot pink. I really could just bathe in it, you know? So I'm just going over those fluorescent sections, and with these finer colors, these like 0.008 fine glitters, it makes it so much easier to blend into the next section, as well as make sure that you're getting full coverage in all of your areas. So this hot pink is one of those finer glitter colors that really just help to blend and create that kind of ombre or blend into the next color. So as I said, we're taking the finest cuts of color that I have for each of these and really just trying to go over, and now we're creating that full coverage. So this is Ermagherd from Peachy Olive Glitters, and I'm going over the white sections with this and just trying to blend into the next section. And the way that I'm doing this is you're just kind of tilting the cup towards that color, not all the way, but just in a slight angle so that the color just starts to kind of fall into the next section or color. So going in both directions to create those blends of color in between colored sections. And then finally, just going back in with my gold member, and I'm just going to, again, with this final color, just go in and blend that into the two pink sections on either side of this tumbler. So that's the finished swirl. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, it's completely covered. So now we're just going to take a piece of parchment paper and just roll the cup on the parchment paper. And this is just to get all that chunky glitter flattened. After that glitter application, I let that dry for a couple of hours because I did use quick coat under the glitter. And then I applied 2 coats of 20 mLs each of Amazing Quick Coat, which is Illuminlight's fast setting epoxy. And now I am ready to sand. You guys have seen me sand before, so I'm just going to speed through this. So really, I'm focusing on the top rim to make sure I get that fine line of stainless steel to ensure that I get a great seal at the top of my cup when I go into my final coats of epoxy. I am also going to sand kind of the entire cup with a 120 grit sanding block, and that is just to knock off any of the sharp glitter that may still be poking up, as well as to make sure I have a smooth surface to work on before we go into creating our Milky Way swirls. So focusing on the bottom for anything that is sharp or sticking out, and to make sure that that bottom rim is smooth before we go into our glitter swirls. Okay, so this is my favorite part of the process. This is like painting a Picasso to me. So I'm gonna start with just putting a generous coat of epoxy onto my cup. I'm using, I believe I've mixed up 30 mLs. I know I'm not gonna need all of this, but I'd rather have more than less. So I'm just gonna put probably about 10 to 15 mLs on the cup. Again, I want it to be a thin enough coat. That way the other epoxies that I put on with the colorants in them do not run all over the place, but I need it to be thick enough that it is covering the entire tumbler. So putting about 10 to 15 mLs on the cup, because I know I'm going to be applying more epoxy directly on top of this layer of epoxy. So now that I have it covered, I am just going to torch it and pop any bubbles, just very quickly running my torch over the entirety of the cup, popping any of those micro bubbles I may have gotten while mixing up my epoxy. And then I'm going to take two other medicine cups, and I'm going to split my epoxy into those, and then obviously keep the third for a third color. We're going to be using 3 colors today. We're using a hot pink acrylic paint, which I used actually in my video for tie-dye shoes. We're also going to be using Alumilite's white epoxy dye. Just 1 drop of that goes a long way. And then we're going to use a mica powder that I picked up from Michael's. It's kind of like a goldish yellow color. I wish I had more of a true gold, but this did really also give it a great look to add to this tumbler. So I'm going to take a scoop of that mica powder, and I'm going to put that into the third cup of epoxy. So I don't really have a measurement, if you will, as to how much in each of the cups, but always start with just a little bit, because you can always add more to your cup. You can't take away any of those paints or dyes. So now I'm going to mix up each of those 3 colors. So this is the gold mica we're going to be using, and we're not going to use a whole lot of this gold mica on there, just a little bit and kind of some access points to really just bring out the gold of the cup. We have our white epoxy dye, which we are going to be using. I absolutely love this epoxy dye because it really does only take like a drop, maybe a drop or 2, to really get it completely white. It is like amazing how amazing this epoxy dye does work from Alumilite. So now I'm starting with the white, and I want to put just strings of white epoxy over some of those pink sections. So you'll notice that I'm really trying to make sure to not get it in the white section, because that'll be where I put the pink or the gold section. I'm really just focusing on those pink section. So the one thing I'm going to say too is less is more. So you can always go back and add more. It's kind of hard to take it away once you put it on your cup. So now with that hot pink, that fluorescent pink, we're going to string some of this over the gold and it a little bit into the white sections as well. You'll notice I have not done anything with the lines after I've applied them to the cup with my stir stick. I haven't touched them, haven't done anything, because I'm going to do that as a whole together. So finally, with the gold, I'm just putting this in a few sections, not too many of the sections, because again, I wanted this to be a little bit of an accent. I didn't want it to overtake the cup. Okay, so just going back in a little bit with that gold, and then I'm gonna grab a silicone like makeup brush. I think that's what they technically are. I purchased them a pack from Amazon. It's got a bunch of different sizes and styles, and I'm gonna use that to kind of pull out some of the colors that melded together that I didn't like, and stretch out some of that color. Off shot, I do have a paper towel that I'm just wiping my silicone brush on. And I'm just going in and kind of trying to separate some of those lines of color that may have mixed, because I don't want the colors to mix here. I just want them to kind of swirl and widen and just kind of create a beautiful Milky Way style cup. So now I'm going in with my heat gun. You'll notice I'm not using my torch, and I'm directly applying heat to those larger areas of the epoxy strings of color to get them to widen and move just a little bit around the cup. I don't want full movement, and you'll see in some sections I did get a lot of moving, so I had to go back and clean those sections up. But I just want to get the epoxy colored epoxy rather, to just move slightly. I didn't want too much movement because I knew that would make a more muddled look, and I still wanted to be able to see the glitter underneath as well as differentiate each of the lines of color that I put with that epoxy. So now just with my gloved hand, because I've gotten too much movement in some of my areas, I am just taking my gloved finger, and in those areas where I have too much, I'm just scooping that out with my finger and wiping my hands on a paper towel. So this is definitely a way that you can try and clean up some of your sections. Obviously, if you apply too much color to your tumbler, it's then harder to remove that color other than wiping it off completely and starting over, which I don't recommend because that could definitely be a mess. But again, just taking my gloved finger, spreading out some of those lines where I may have gotten kind of dots in sections that I didn't really anticipate, and just trying to stretch out those lines of color throughout the tumbler. And again, this is not supposed to be perfect. This is not meant to be like gorgeous, completely straight lines like you could with a piece of vinyl. This is meant to have some movement, meant to have some kind of cloudiness and kind of stream-like look to the tumbler, because again, this is creating just kind of another dimension of this tumbler. So I'm going to finish playing with this and let this spin, and we'll get into doing decals. For decals, I have opened Cricut Design Space on my phone. I've already uploaded the images into my uploaded files, 2 Aquarius SVGs that I got off of Etsy. Of course, I will link them in the description below. So I've sized both to 3.5 because I have a 20-ounce tumbler. I know that's kind of the biggest that I can have these images on my cup. So I'm going to show you kind of how we're going to resize these and also get rid of some of the extras that we don't need. So I've opened the edit tool, or the layers tool, for the Aquarius, and all I want is the Aquarius symbol. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking on the different pieces of that Aquarius PNG or SVG that I don't need, and I am hiding those. And the reason why I'm hiding those is because, again, I only wanted the symbol. I don't want the word Aquarius or any of the other stars, because that part is actually going to go on the very bottom of this tumbler. So I am going to get out of this, and then we are just going to resize that to make sure that it will fit on the bottom of the tumbler. I believe for the Aquarius symbol on the bottom, I believe it was only like 2.25. It wasn't that big, but big enough to still be seen. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up my fonts, and so I'm going to be adding a name to this cup as well. I've just picked one of, I think it's DTC Honey Syrup for the name. I end up changing this and actually downloaded a font called Artsy. I believe I got this from Design Bundles. I love downloading their fonts from font bundles/design bundles. They always have really cute fonts. So I downloaded that font and then actually changed this because that was more of a calligraphy that I wanted. I didn't really want the print. So I did also size the name to be 3.5 inches as well. When I went to make it, I realized that I hadn't welded my Aquarius symbol. So I went back in, selected that image, and then I go in and I'm going to attach that so that it is one symbol on the mat. So I'm going to print that and then we'll get them on the cup. So I know you guys have seen me apply decals, so we'll kind of go through this quickly. The vinyl that I used is, I believe it's Icy Opal. Or maybe it's Rainbow Opal. It might be Rainbow Opal, but it's from the Vinyl People. I'll link it in the description below, and that's what I printed all of these images on. And so I'm just obviously taking a piece of transfer tape, and I'm going to use my squeegee to get that on to my image, and then peel off the backing. I'm not using the hinge method here because this is a curved cup, and it's a little bit harder for me to do that because of the taper of this cup. So I'm just kind of doing a look and stick, if you will, and doesn't matter so much for the front of the cup. Obviously, I'll need to pay a little bit more attention to the back. So flipping that over, and I'm going to do the same exact thing with that same piece of transfer tape. Save your supplies, girls. And I'm going to apply the name to the very back of this tumbler in the same area and section, pinching or applying it in the middle and then smoothing from edge to edge. It just makes it a little bit easier if you're not using the hinge method to do it that way. Then going on to the bottom, that Aquarius symbol, doing the same exact thing I did with the other two images and just very carefully applying that to the bottom. I applied 2 final coats of epoxy to this cup, cleaned it up, and it was all set and ready to go. I hope you guys really loved today's tutorial. I had a lot of fun making this cup. I can't wait for the owner to receive her cup. I hope that she loves it as much as I do. As always, any questions, leave those in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. As always, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as join my Facebook group, LBC Community, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!